I haven't thought yet about where I'll play, but I have thought a lot about where I've been.
This year we experienced a shift in the NFL's fault lines with Tom Brady leaving the Patriots for the Buccaneers. It was the biggest free agent event to happen in the NFL possibly ever. Maybe the only other team switched to rival it, at least in recent times, would be Brady's rival himself, Peyton Manning. After the Colts parted ways with Peyton, the whole league turned its head to watch in anticipation of where in the world the Indianapolis great would move his career. In this video, we're going to dive into detail on who else was in the mix to land Peyton Manning's services back in 2012. We'll go over some of the bizarre scenarios they went through to stay hidden from the media, and we'll break down why he picked the Broncos in the end, even though there were some other great choices. One of the popular picks for where Peyton would go was the Titans. After all, he was already a legend at Tennessee, and former Titans owner Bud Adams sure made it clear that he wanted him. He told a Houston TV station he offered Peyton a contract for life, and he felt great about the team's chances to sign him. NFL Network reported that the for life part would include an organizational role after Peyton retired as a player. If we fast forward to present day, it seems like Peyton is in the news every year about potential GM positions, but he still has never taken one. Still, the Titans offer had to mean something because years later Peyton told the Tennessean he was pretty close to signing with the team. In the end, it almost certainly would have been a mistake, though, with the Titans not having the talent some other teams could put up, including the Broncos themselves. Peyton also had a secret workout at Duke for an undercover team. Two men pulled up and watched him in a car. Then, this coming from Sports Illustrated, to get a better view, they came onto the field, hoodies pulled over their heads so as not to be recognized by some noisy iPhoner. After the workout, Peyton texted his mother, "You'll never guess who I just worked out for. He was wearing a hoodie." And she responded, "Bill Belichick?" Got him! It was actually 49ers head coach Jim Harbaugh and offensive coordinator Greg Roman. The 49ers had just gone to the NFC Championship the year before with Alex Smith. In fact, they went into overtime against the eventual Super Bowl champion Giants. Jim Harbaugh was looking more and more like the next big thing in the NFL, and a pairing with Peyton would have made some serious noise in the NFC. Their defense was one of the best in the league, and on offense they would have had Peyton playing with Pro Bowl Frank Gore, prime Michael Crabtree, and Vernon Davis. And as a bonus, he'd get to play with Randy Moss in his final years as well. At the time, this was the most talented team he could have gone to. If he did join forces with the Hooded Men, then they probably would have eventually met in the Super Bowl with another Hooded Man, meaning we would have gotten a Peyton Brady Super Bowl, maybe even more than once. These two did continually take out each other in the AFC playoffs for years. Anyway, I think the main thing derailing this from ever happening was Peyton wanting control of Harbaugh's offense. The Seahawks made an attempt too. Sports Illustrated said, Manning got a call informing him that Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll had flown unannounced with Seattle GM John Schneider to the airport in Inglewood. Carroll would do whatever Manning wanted, talk for a while in Denver or on the plane to Arizona his next visit, or fly him to Seattle for a lengthier discussion. Peyton Manning does not like surprises. He said no thanks. Carroll flew home. The Seahawks were coming off a 7-9 season, but luckily for them they got a franchise quarterback of their own that same year. The Cardinals were probably the last serious contender in the sweepstake. And with Arizona trying to improve off an 8-8 season, probably the main reason for them getting consideration was their head coach, Ken Whisenhunt. ESPN said Manning and Whisenhunt became familiar with each other during a Pro Bowl when Whisenhunt was offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a friendship grew from that experience. Both sides engaged in extensive football discussions, including film study and evaluation of the current roster, as well as organizational discussions related to the salary cap. Manning also had the opportunity to speak with both teams' owners and top executives and other members of the coaching staffs. Cardinals All-Pro receiver Larry Fitzgerald was present at a dinner Saturday night, hosted at the home of Wisenhunt, and during a portion of the meetings at the team's facility Sunday. So this whole thing is beginning to feel like an NBA free agency expedition, where teams are willing to pull out all the stops to get that big fish. And as we've discussed so far, there really are some intriguing options here. Maybe one could be argued it looked even better than Denver. And at one point, reports were saying Arizona was the favorite. So now the question arises, why in the end did Peyton Manning take his talents to the Broncos?
Fortunate to have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks in this room. One's already in the Hall of Fame, the other one's definitely going in when he retires.
The 2011 Broncos were a memorable bunch. The team went 8-8 but still won the AFC West. They got hot after a slow start due to some Tim Tebow magic. They beat the Steelers in overtime in the wildcard round and then got smacked by the Patriots. Still, this team had some talent. After all, they did have 6 Pro Bowlers that year, with one of them being a blossoming Von Miller. Tebow might have won some games here and there, but there were still some accuracy and fumbling issues. Point is, with a great quarterback, this could be a great team. And with Demaryius Thomas and Eric Decker both making strides in their sophomore years, there was also optimism surrounding the weapons in this offense. So the team wasn't where the 49ers were at, but the key was that they could get to that point. Now, a roster is obviously incredibly important, and I'm sure that was one of the most important factors Peyton was considering. But with so many unknowns after leaving the team he had played for 13 years, there were certainly other things to consider as well. The first part of Peyton's thought process was actually some shock. Peter King said Manning was uncertain what he would do. As recently as the day before he was released, he had thought that he and the Colts might work something out. But his decision wasn't going to be about money. It was going to be about picking a place where he'd feel comfortable early on because of how quickly he'd have to mesh with a new team. And I think that's a key part of it because that's where the Elway Factor comes in. Peyton was 36. He knew this was going to be the final, last stage of his career. And out of all the players in NFL history, Broncos GM John Elway had one of the best endings to a Hall of Fame career. After never winning the big one, Elway finally won back-to-back Super Bowls at ages 37 and 38. It makes perfect sense that Peyton would trust Elway, a man who did what he desires to do, when making this decision. So what does Elway do to be sure that Peyton would trust him? He simply treats him like he would want to be treated if the Broncos had released him during his playing days. Again with SI, Elway said about Peyton, "I really don't know. I never asked him. I never asked him who was in it or where we ranked. I just know if I was in his shoes, I'd know how I'd want to be treated." And that's how I tried to treat Peyton. John Elway, of all the people trying to reel in Peyton's services, knew how to entice a star quarterback because he was a star quarterback. It was a sense of familiarity, and Peyton knew he was going to be given the keys to the offense. As head coach, John Fox came from the defensive side of the ball. He probably wasn't going to be given that freedom from Harbaugh. But most importantly, like I said, in a moment of shock and uncertainty in Peyton's life, he looked to the man who he had a growing sense of familiarity with. Elway had already put together a playoff team with Tim Tebow at quarterback, and Peyton knew he would continue to find the fits a star quarterback would need. Plus, as a bonus, he didn't have to play in the NFC and compete with Eli, and he didn't have to play in the Colts division. But in the end, it was the Elway Factor. Who knows how things would have gone if Peyton had opted for another team. For the Broncos, though, he returned from injury in all his glory. And when he started to weaken and slow down, Elway had a team in place to get him one last championship.
I've always had a great deal of respect for John Elway. He is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play, and his knowledge and respect for the game is evident in everything that he does.
Peyton wanted Tennessee. The real reason he chose Denver is because he knew Jake Locker would win the Titans' job.